What's a rule that was implemented somewhere that massively backfired? I work in manufacturing and we get paid piece rate. So the more I run the more I get paid. We also have a base hourly pay rate of $10 HR. So whichever pays more, the hourly or the piece rate, is what we get paid for the day. On bad days sometimes they bump us to $12 HR for the day, and when we train new people we get paid $15 HR to compensate for having to slow down or stop our machines to teach the new people. The big boss, my boss, came in last week. Now he used to work on the line like I do now, but you can tell he's living comfortably in his corporate life and has forgotten some of the bad parts of this job. He told my boss that we are to no longer receive training pay because, by his logic, if we are working with someone we should be making more than $15 HR. Anyway, and these past 3 weeks or so we have been doing a lot of training. So a few of us got together at the end of the day and agreed, if they aren't paying us, we won't train people. We will teach the new people enough to make us some money and leave the training to the designated trainers. 2 people split between 15 or so new hires, but they make $17.50 HR. The policy lasted 4 days. Also, the infamous Barbados vs Grenada soccer match. The organizers of the 1994 Caribbean Tournament Cup had a rather odd change to the rules for extra time. If a game was still drawn at full time, it would go to extra time but the first goal scored would win. This is perfectly normal, the golden goal rule. What was different is that they ruled that winning this way would count as having won by 2 goals for the purpose of tournament qualification, instead of just 1. Barbados went into a match against Grenada needing 2 goals to qualify for the main tournament. If they lost, or won by only 1 goal, Grenada would qualify instead. Under the regular rule, this would mean that if the match went to extra time, there would basically be no point Barbados playing because even if they scored, they would only win by 1 goal and not qualify, but the 2-point rule would motivate them to play on. Sound good? Well, you might be able to guess what happened. The match looked like it was about to end with Barbados 2-1 Grenada, a win for Barbados, but not the 2 goals they needed. So Barbados deliberately scored an own goal in the last few minutes of the match, making the score 2-2, hoping to trigger extra time and a chance to score the magic 2-value goal. The Grenada players quickly realized they could do the same, score an own goal to make the match 3-2 to Barbados, which would have Barbados winning by only 1 goal, so Grenada would qualify. But the Barbados players realized that too, and so they began to defend Grenada's goal. So for the last 7 minutes of the match, Grenada were trying to score a goal in either net, since scoring a goal against Barbados would give them 3-2 and they would win the match, and scoring in their own goal would make it 3-2 to Barbados, so they would lose the match but win the qualification, and Barbados were defending both. Amazingly, Barbados did actually manage to do so, successfully defending themselves while half of their team were defending Grenada's goal against Grenada, and then scored the golden goal in extra time and qualified. I used to work at a semiconductor lab, looking for defects in computer chips with an electron microscope. The work is complicated, precise, and easy to fuck up. One wrong move, and the sample is toast, a lip, lost in processing, as they say in the biz. Management got really angry at lips and started clamping down really hard on technicians who did them. If you fucked up a sample, you got written up. The problem is that not all jobs are created equal. Some jobs are really easy, and other jobs are really hard and risky. So, the smart technicians started taking all of the easy jobs, and the idiots who didn't know any better started taking all of the hard jobs. The lip rate then went up, and it created a really contentious atmosphere in the lab of people screwing each other over to take the easiest jobs. Morale plummeted, and people started leaving to go to other groups that weren't shit sandwiches. This drove lab output down even further. Worked for a warehouse 4 days a week, 11 AM 9:30 PM Monday to Thursday. They reiterated many times during the interview process that overtime was optional. My first day my supervisor told me that overtime is indeed optional, but if you don't stay for overtime then everybody else has to stay even later. So if you do leave on time, don't come back. Whatever. I didn't mind the extra hours too much, although a 10.5-hour shift is already long, but the bonus was that we could go early if all the orders were done. As you can imagine, The good workers busted their ass from start to finish, cutting as many corners, good and bad ones, as they could in order to get out early. Normally this ended up with us being able to leave around 15 minutes early, or on a really good day where the stars aligned. Everybody showed up. We could leave as early as 7:30 or 8. However, leaving that early only happened once or twice a year at most. Overtime was every week. Every single Monday we would work until 2 am. 11 am to 2 am isn't ideal when you have no idea when you're off. At around 7 pm we'd start to get an idea if we're in for another hour or another 6. One of the genius new hires mentioned to the boss in the office how he was hoping to get out by 6. Oh good. Apparently the boss was thinking us leaving early was a common occurrence now and decided that nobody was going to be leaving early anymore. Sweep or dust or whatever, but nobody leaves until 9:30. All of a sudden we were late every single day without fail. Why? We were working our booties off to get out early but failing every day and ending up on time, or still late. By taking away our ability to leave early, everybody gave up working hard. Slow down. We've got another hour left anyways. I'm not sweeping. Went from about 45 hours a week to 55. 13 hours every day. Nobody ever left early anymore, but nobody left on time either. Losses for everybody involved because the boss didn't realize that us leaving early for 2 days out of a year actually gave us the daily motivation to work our booties off the other 360. TL. Dr. Boss put a stop to leaving early. No incentive to work our booties off anymore means paying overtime every day. I worked at a call center, and whenever someone called customer retention to cancel their service you would lose a point if you could not talk them out of it. The people with the least points lost got more hours. So whenever people called with a legit excuse like "I am moving the phone," agents would hassle the caller to try and make them stay or give them the runaround so they would get frustrated and just give up. Once I was on the phone with a lady and she wanted to cancel her service. I asked her why and she said it was for my mother and she has died. I gave her absolutely no pressure to stay or change her mind. She sounded like she was having a hard enough time as it is. After the call ended I got a message from a supervisor that had been listening to my call. They randomly listen to our calls from time to time, and he wanted to know why I did not try and get her to stay with them. I said the service was not for her, it was for her mother and she died. His response was the most heartless thing I had ever heard. "You should have made her send us proof of death. That can take over a month to do, and that's another bill for us. Or try to convince her to keep the service in memory of her mother." It's all about delaying the customer until after their next bill. After my shift was over I gave them my 2 weeks notice, and as a final move they changed my schedule to Monday through Friday 6 pm to 2 am for both weeks. I told my boss I had made a mistake, took back my letter saying I would still come in for the next 2 weeks, and left and never came back. Edit 1. Their system actually requires no proof or actual reason to stop a customer's service. It even says in their contract that they can stop service at any time. They were only doing this to be a dick and charge the customer more money. Edit 2. This took place in Canada. Edit 3. This took place at a call center that outsources calls to over 200 businesses in the United States. Strip joints in Alberta, Canada are an interesting example of this. Believing that strippers and strip clubs were the root of all things wrong with the world, the Citizens for Decency led by Audrey Jensen sprung about in Alberta in the 1980s. They pushed for legislation that would create an invisible, imaginary buffer zone of 1.5 meters or something around exotic dancers to protect them from patrons in Perth Row. This barrier would become facilitated in some clubs with an odd little railing or other physical means, but most bars I've seen in Alberta don't have actual physical barriers. At least not anymore. Maybe there were more intrusive blocks and partitions when the law was new. The result of this protective measure was, and still is, that patrons can no longer hand $5 bills, 20s, etc. to the dancers. They cannot tuck a bill into their undies or crawl on stage with a bill in their mouth to have it snatched away. Instead, in Alberta, strip club patrons throw dollar coins at the dancers. Typically this comes after their dance, when the dancers go around posing on their knees, etc., with their personal posters rolled up to improvise a cone. Customers throw their loonies at the cone and then it's funneled toward her pussy. Other versions of this is the dancers will lick a loonie and stick it to their ass, and the game is to throw your loonies to try to knock it off. Winners get a fridge magnet, signed poster, keychain, etc. Once the coin toss games are over, the dancer will then return to the stage with a large magnet on a leash and drag it around collecting her hard-earned metal. She'll intermittently scrape the loonies into a beer jug as they accumulate and continue dragging the magnet around. I should say that some folks still prefer to keep it classy and use larger bills, but it's about 1 in 20. So, to recap, the goal was to protect the safety and dignity of dancers. The result is the dancers have become reduced to fleshy coin toss targets. TLDR. In Alberta, strip clubs are weird and you throw dollar coins at the strippers. Edit. Wow, my first gilding. Thanks, kind stranger. Dry counties were meant to reduce use of alcohol in certain areas, but they result in people who want to get drunk driving further away from home to do so, increasing the odds and frequency of drunk driving accidents. Also, many attempt to rescind dry county laws end up getting counted by campaigns paid for by the bars and liquor stores that set up on the edge of dry counties, typically under the guise of religious messages. This exact thing happened here a few years ago when it was on the ballot. Two measures were up, one to allow alcohol sales at the state level, and one to allow it at the county level. A few counties passed it at the county level but voted against it at the state level, so that their county would be wet in the middle of dry counties and they'd get out of county revenue. My county voted against it at both levels, with help of $1 million in contributions from the largest liquor store just on the other side of the county line. We're a county with 3 colleges and they currently get all of that revenue. If we were to go wet, it'd cost them far more than they contribute to the campaign against it. It sucks. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm only 16, so I hope you didn't cringe from the editing. I hope we can get to 50,000 subscribers because I wouldn't be here without all of you. So thank you so much for your time and energy, and please subscribe.